My mantra that I kind of go with, particularly the last 10 years, is go with your natural flow. I think you can end up in different things in life where your job or different things you're doing become very much a chore, and because it's not a natural energy towards it, I'd say always go towards your natural energy, go with your natural curiosities and interests. Because in doing that, you're going to succeed in those areas far more than anybody else because it doesn't feel like work to you.
They may have told you to go to the big city, chase the busy crowds, find the bright lights, but no, you chose your own path to stay right here. I'm your host, Claire Bouvier. Welcome to the Small Town Entrepreneur Podcast, where opportunity is just on the other side of the door. We have an awesome episode today. I am so excited. We are sitting with Graham O'Connor, the product lead for Connect.com, an innovative and incredible community that I'm now part of under HubSpot, designed for marketers, customer service representatives, and sales professionals. Anyone that's trying to sell a product or a service in their business. He highlights how Connect.com, a platform that he has built that bridges the gap in the authentic professional networking by offering a space where members can learn from each other, share insights, and build meaningful relationships. He has a mantra of go with your natural flow that we're going to look at today and why he feels so passionate about that. Graham encourages embracing our passions and curiosities to find success and fulfillment. So here we go. Let's jump in and talk to Graham right in Dublin, Ireland. Welcome to the show. I am so excited. Graham, how excited are you 1 to 10 to be here?
I'm 11. I wouldn't even go on the 10 scale.
Is that the Irish lying?
I think it's a line. What's that? A kind of slapstick film. Turn it up to 11 on the ramp and turn it into a rock comedy.
There is some technical questions I want to get into. People that know me, I'm not good at the small talk. I go right deep in what's your life's mission? So I'm working on, moving into that. But something I've been really interested in asking people, what's something you do every single day? I mean, you can't cop out and say you brush your teeth, but what's something that people wouldn't know that you do every day?
So I do every day. Well, I do brush my teeth because, dental hygiene, very important,
Yeah, little PSA here. Okay. You're biding time. I like it, but that's okay.
I know. I mean, I'm a recent
You make your bed every day.
I'm a recent parent, so I feel like, my life's got a lot more boring and but my life at the moment revolves around my baby girl and work, so.
That's fair.
Every single day lately, I play box with my little daughter on her play mat and we make some towers and she knocks them down before I go to work.
Well, you know what? That's unique because guess what? You haven't done that for probably the last 30 years, right?
That's it.
So that's new. And I bet you change a diaper every day.
I sure do. Yes.
Changes. I love it. Okay. You've had a really unique journey. Your path, when people hear what you do, which I'm going to ask you, what's your title? Because you have a lot of titles and you've had a lot of titles. What do you do today?
So today I'm the product lead of a new professional network by HubSpot called Connect.com. And so we're creating a new network that's really just focused on marketers, customer service, and sales professionals. So we want to create a network bringing everybody together where people can learn from each other, grow their careers, help each other out, and really create a pack of connections online. And then hopefully, they also meet in real life at events and things like that.
Like this.
Like this. Exactly like this.
This is a thing. I think it's so cool because I love transparency. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. TMI, there's a fine line, right? But I find it's really important that I like to say, this is how it happened, because I like to say, I love people. You clearly love people. This is what you've dedicated your life to, building networks, bringing people together. And so I like to share this, how this happened. And,
Sure.
I think hype people meet other hype people. You hype other people. I am a huge fan. I can't believe I'm saying this, was I haven't been a fangirl ever for anything like, Spice Girls came and went, whatever, and I'm dating myself. But, Marketing Against the Grain is a podcast. For those of you that have not listened, you need to, because it is all the things that one needs in your marketing world and entertainment. And because I was probably a very avid listener and engaged, Graham, Graham and I connected. And it's just really cool how this world, connects, because this is the small town entrepreneur. We're going to go sideways here, but do you think you need to be in a big city to have big opportunities, Graham?
I don't think so. I think maybe in the past, yes, I would say. But I think as time's gone on, particularly I think COVID was a big accelerator for remote work. And particularly in the tech world where, I spent my whole career,
Yeah.
um, I feel like there's less of a need to be in the big cities in this world because we have the different technologies like we're doing today, talking over Zoom, the quality's so excellent.
Yeah.
I think you can get so much more done, working remote and not being in the big cities far more than we have in the past, So I would confidently say the answer to that today is no. I don't believe that to be true.
Thank you. Because you know what? This question could have really backfired on me. So this is
If
perfect. And it's true. And I do think this was happening way before COVID, but I think COVID was a catalyst to the movement of tech and how fast we're moving and how connected we can be with a click of a button. And your journey going into where you are today, and you started in technology, but how did you know, like, what were some of major experiences that kind of led you into the career in specifically product development, but now it's very people focused product development?
Yeah. So yeah, like I started my career in software. I was originally a software engineer. Absolutely love coding, fell in love with coding.
That's awesome.
And so I'd been working, many different business, some big corporations and some small startups. And that I found over time I was becoming more drawn to the business and strategy side and
Cool.
creating good team dynamics and what it takes to create a high performance product team more so than coding day to day, And so, yeah, I made the decision about 6, 7 years ago to switch out of being an engineer and move to product management. And it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. I've absolutely loved it.
And it's cool because I think people like you make the best leaders, especially in technology, because you have a complete understanding of the back end, front end, all the experiences, and which is really neat. While you're going through it, specifically in the technology industry, has there any
Mhm.
been major lessons that you've learned that have really impacted, like something, maybe a huge mistake you've made or something? Because it's fascinating. I see all the time there's a huge movement towards building authentic communities, right? Like we've talked about, AI is going to standardize average, right? I think in the words of Kipper Kieran and other people, this everyone has access to average level, but what's going to make something great is the human connectivity. So what are some
Yep.
of the lessons that you've bridged between the two worlds, but what were some of the big lessons that really pushed you into those spaces?
In terms of making an online network.
Yeah, or it doesn't have to be an online network, but that community focus. How did you know? Because you seem to be on the pulse of what's next, right? And
Yeah.
you know where customers and individuals are leaning towards. What insights did you have or know that pushed you into working in the community space?
Yeah, like I think one thing that is very, very like we kind of started talking about, like, do you need to be in the big city
Yeah.
to get opportunities? I think we can confidently say the answer to that is no. But the fact that work has kind of changed a lot in terms of how we work, in terms of where we work,
Yeah.
I think there is a lack of connection between people, like not that strong connection that we used to have. And so the real want for this, like we found starting in connect.com, we've had a couple of different workshops where we get some of the communities together and people have been waiting for these things. They're like, thanking us so much for putting these events together. because like people just lack this connection. We kind of sit in our offices and bedrooms and see less and less
Garages.
people. Exactly, yeah. See less and less people every day, and there's a huge need to fill in that gap, and we don't want to fill that gap in with these kind of like connections that aren't real. We want to build these authentic connections where people really get to know each other, and so that's like a huge opportunity that we see.
And I think that's so cool. Every panel conversation I have with entrepreneurs starting their businesses, it all comes into that. They always lean towards the question of connectivity, you
Mhm.
know, feeling like, how do I build a network? How do I do it? They're not asking, what's my cash flow? How do I improve that? They're asking, how do I stay motivated? How do I
Yeah.
build out networks? So I think it's a amazing thing that you're building. Now, Graham, we're going to zoom out because you're building something so, you're used to coding and building a product that you know exactly the steps that you need to, more or less do. But when you're working with people, there's a lot of more, there's so many other facets to consider, right? How human behavior, changes the way we buy, the way we connect. When you're building something, and you're trying to put something together, what's your process of working? Because you can't just dive in and start building something and hope that it works,
No.
right? What are some of the things, the steps that you do? Do you go sit outside in nature and grab a pen and paper, and are you philosophizing, or are you in focus groups? Like, what is your approach to really conquering the challenges of developing these products and servicing the market needs, especially with technology moving so quickly?
Yeah, so I'd say there's very little of sitting under a tree with a pen and paper, and getting
Hey.
out ideas, I wish that was the case, but no. Honestly, particularly at the start, you just need to talk to a lot of people. You're going to have some hypothesis to think like, okay, I think there's a gap in the market, or I think, we're well positioned to execute on a certain opportunity.
But why do you
At the end
can
of the
we
day,
stop you there? Sorry, that's so key. You are like, I think people like you, that's your brilliance. That's your genius. You said, I think that there's an opportunity, but like, what what got you to that? That's
yeah,
like, that I know. It's funny because I talk to people like you and like, that's your genius. What is that? How did you come to knowing that's an opportunity?
I mean, in this case,
Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah, yeah. In this case, again, it's like talking to people. When we see the opportunity of like people lack authentic connection, they find it hard to connect with other professionals in a real way.
Yeah.
And we see that and we hear it, and we talk to different kind of areas of the market or different professionals. Like for instance, early days at Connect.com, we did a lot of research around small business founders,
Yeah.
and small business founders in particular find that they can be quite lonely, like in terms of leaning on other small business founders to keep them motivated, help them on the way and ask for advice and all of that. And it's just hearing and seeing those things in everyday life and observing what's going on around us, And then we start to dig in there and we kind of like, okay, well, we think we see this opportunity. And then we're having many, many conversations with more and more of these people to see like, well, how real is this? Like, what sort of problems are they having with this? Where can we help? Like, where are they underserved today? And then in terms of bringing things out to market, particularly at HubSpot, we like to move extremely fast. Like, we won't spend 2, 3 years developing something and then get our first user on it. We tend to build in public,
Love
and
that.
we like to get, what we believe is that MVP together, get it out in front of customers, keep talking. Let's see where we can improve, constant customer interviews, and and building upon there to see where we've gone right, see where we've gone wrong, and fix our mistakes very quickly, So that's how we like to do things.
I I love that because that screams confidence, right? A lot of people, well, if you talk to small business owners, they hold on to things for so long before executing because of the fear of that failure, but you're confident in the product. Then when you're building this out,
Mm.
like, so let's say Connect.com. I've been part of tons of little online communities and there's Facebook. There's tons of opportunity. Your community, I mean, I interacted with Connect.com for the first time. And I loved within seconds I could start a conversation. So the onboarding process, I will say publicly live here, it was just so quick to get into a conversation with someone. I've been on other platforms where the onboarding process, it takes too long to fill up my profile. Everything just takes too long. And then you're like, the excitement of chatting with an individual was gone,
Yeah,
because by the time I get in, I'm like, oh, I've typed too much. Hi, everyone.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's like my user experience. What separates, because there's this balance of practicality you have to consider
Uh,
and innovation moving so quickly. How, what separates connect.com from all these other communities that you're building? What do you think is really unique about this product?
yeah, like I think what we're trying to do with Connect is it's more kind of like a community first network. I find a lot of, I don't know about you, but I find a lot of networks out there are quite self promotion rather than, authentically helping people. And so we're really trying to build a network that is more about authentic connection rather than, self promotion and spam and advertising and all that sort of stuff. So, that's really what we're trying to do. Create a more kind of personable network, a place where you can really get to know people, where people aren't just trying to promote their products and
Yeah.
advertise out there. They actually are trying to make, real connections in the professional world.
And I definitely see that because of the segmentation that you've set up, right? So
Mm,
when you jump into the community, you know which community you want to be a part of and where it's going. So if you want AI, you have your AI, you have your marketing against the grain. I love that. Now, small business owners, this is a
mm.
huge struggle because they're wearing 100,000 different hats every day.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing, more than anything, everyone says like content is king. And now it's really like the user experience is so crucial because we have every tool at our fingertips. If someone is wearing all the hats, what are the number one thing that you see as something that a small business owner could be integrating every day without, essentially killing themselves and putting another 10, 15 hours into their work week to get that strong customer feedback or that creating a great user experience? What's something that they could implement today, this week?
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds very simple, but the thing is to make sure to carve out the time to talk to your customers on a regular basis. In terms of like implementing something that you can get a lot of feedback very quickly, I would definitely recommend like implementing some sort of like CSAT survey tool within your product, if you have an online digital experience, or implement surveys with your customers after they purchase from you or after they've had some interaction with you. That's a good kind of process and habit to get into. So anytime they have an interaction with you, make sure you're getting some feedback over time. When you're getting volume in there, you're going to see those very clear patterns in terms of like, okay, where can I improve? What are my customers really happy about? And so for those things to improve, fix those. And things they're really happy about, lean into that more.
Yeah,
Um, so
I love.
those things are key.
And you know what? It's funny because it's so, like you said, it sounds simple, but that feedback loop is so crucial. But at the same time, having so many conversations because I work strictly with small businesses, the
Mm.
conversation always comes back to there is that, are they ready to hear feedback? You know, they work so hard to execute it. If they're holding on to that, their MVP, and they finally put it out,
Yeah.
there is that, am I ready? So I love that, fail fast or get it out there.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm a huge believer in that, like
Yeah.
because you could continue going in this like very wrong direction for the sake of like maybe feeling a bit bad temporarily. And it's only temporarily, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you'd want to hear that sooner rather than later if you are going in the wrong direction. You'd be spending more of your time and money creating something that is not useful, that people don't want, or solves the problem that you're trying to solve in a not so good way.
Yeah.
So I would say get things out in front of people as early as possible, even if it's just a sketch on a piece of paper, is like
Yeah.
really easy one. Like get it in front of people.
And people like that rawness. They like being part of the conversation, especially if they're committed to what you're offering. I love that. You have so much experience leading teams and building communities. For the listeners that might be not executing on the, day to day, very small, streamlining certain parts of operations in their business, but they are in a position that they're leading a team. What is What's the Graham O'Connor's secret sauce of building a team that is constantly keeping them stay on top of innovation, keeping them creative, not losing that excitement? What's the secret sauce?
I mean, for me, the secret sauce is like the team is only as good as the collective, right? So it's like it's not me, it's the entire team. And so I think, yeah, I think the key is to get communication right within the team where, I like creating an atmosphere in teams where everybody can be very open and honest with each other and have that freedom so that everybody feels like they're expressing themselves. And so, okay, I'm the product manager on this team, but it's like all the ideas are not coming from me. Like I have a team of like very talented engineers, designers who have their eyes and ears open to everything out there. And so if you create an environment where everybody feels heard, everybody can express themselves, bring their ideas to the table, and feel very motivated to get after things. That to me is the secret to a really good team.
That was perfect because do you know Charles Duhigg wrote his second book? I always mess up the title. It's like Faster, Smarter. It's three words. And he said exactly what you said. So it's nice to read it in a book and then hear it in on a ground level. He says, give equal voices to your team members. And
Agree.
having that, just them contributing, which is so powerful. Again, it's these simple little things, but if it's consistency, the team feels heard. I love that. So, if you were to go back in time, would you have changed the trajectory of going into being an engineer first?
Mhm.
Or because there's going to be a lot of people listening in and they're like, well, Graham had the unique opportunity of having the, engineering, the software background. And then he's, over time, someone that is considering where they want to go in their life.
Yeah.
They love this strategy. They love problem solving. They love working with people. What would be a really good place if they don't have, because let's be honest, it's a different world, but I'm even able to do some JavaScript or Python, with tools if I need to tweak something. I am never going to code. I do not have that ability, but where should they start?
Yeah, I think it depends on each individual. Like, do I have
Yeah,
regrets starting in
for sure.
engineering? Absolutely not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I started out thinking like, okay, I wanted to get into technology. When I was young, I was always drawn towards it, but I didn't know a whole lot about the industry. I had no idea where to start. So I didn't purposely, say, okay, I want to be an engineer. I want to program. Like it's kind of something that just kind of fell into. And I loved it. I'd say move forward where you're naturally drawn. Like there's many different
Yeah.
avenues in terms of, say if you're looking to get into things like product management, like product management is a funny one because there's no like course per se. There's no like, oh
That's what I
yeah,
mean. Yeah.
I did an undergrad in product management. People just come from like different areas and different backgrounds. I think, a lot of people might come from like business school and end up doing product management. People can take the route I took, and starting to engineer and find their way into it. But I think anybody who's starting, there needs to be like, if you're getting a product management position in the company, you either need to have deep knowledge of the existing product, which means you've kind of, already working in the company. So maybe you're working in support, or maybe you're working in success, or intimately like aware of everything that goes on with the product. Or you need to have, be a real expert in the problem area. So, you might be an expert marketer or, something like that, and coming in to work with a marketing product. Or you need to have product management experience. I think you need like one of those three things in order to get a product role. A lot of companies also have like, these associate product manager programs where It's typically people kind of come from like business schools, and there might be like a 1 year,
Yeah.
uh, kind of almost like an internship, and you can get in through that way as well. But if there's, I like, when you talk to like product managers, there's no clear path in
Yeah.
terms of like this is the road you should take. Like, do this step, then that. Like, it's, I don't know. People just kind of find themselves in this position from various different ways.
Totally. And I love that because I think it's important. Like I always laugh. Like I was a high school teacher for English and art.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm obsessed with technology and what it's going to be. And this was something I secretly nerded out every night doing on my own. So I agree.
Yeah.
I love that it's just become, yeah, it's the path that you take that interests you. Now we have just a couple more questions and we'll wrap.
Sure.
But, and, I've been dying to ask this because it's a conversation all the time, and I was reading statistics. 52%, it's gone up by a lot. People are very fearful of this new world we're entering with artificial intelligence, replacing them, replacing their jobs. I have this conversation a lot, but I love hearing different perspectives. Someone in the product leadership, product management, especially you're sitting in tech all day long, what are
Mm.
your takes on how artificial intelligence is either going to, you know, be detrimental or it's going to be your co-pilot? What's your take on AI in as we move forward?
Yeah, like I can see there like being this like real drastic change where suddenly there's like, oh my God, there's so many people without jobs now. Like, I'm a big believer in it's going to make everybody far more productive. I think every individual that's making use of AI will be able to do a hell of a lot more than they were before. Like, I'm sure like all of us in our day to day have these, we spend an hour or two doing these kind of quite repetitive tasks that
Yep.
we rather not be doing. And they're the things I see like AI being very good at, things that are very repeatable that, don't involve a lot of like creativity per se, and don't need that kind of human touch,
Yes.
and so I see things like that, like those sort of tasks being like totally automated. Naturally, there probably is like some types of jobs that, would be like needed less, but like that's the world. There's been jobs throughout time that, become obsolete, but I don't see it being
For sure. That's natural
so
evolution.
drastic. Like one thing
Yes.
I compare it to, like there'll be new jobs because of AI too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you think of like pre-internet, there was no SEO optimizer job in the world, and but that is something that was created because of this new technology. So I think while there's likely going to be some things that are change or not needed as much, there will be new jobs created because of AI. And particularly in the West these days, in the Western world, like employing people is now a problem. It's very actually hard to get staff these days as well.
Can you
A
just
lot of
can you comment on that? Because it's interesting in Canada. You're in Dublin, by the way. I love Dublin. I was a traveling photographer and I spent some time in Dublin and yeah, that's another conversation. But thank you for bringing that up because you see this globally.
yeah.
What's happening there?
I don't know. I
Okay.
wish I had some like great insight as to why that is the case, but I'm sure you see the same in Canada. Like so many places, like looking for staff, can't get staff. Like
All levels. All levels.
all
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
It's a big issue, and I think like hopefully these sort of new technologies and things like that can help plug that gap as well. It actually holds back businesses quite a lot, just not being able to get staff these days. Um,
Wild. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
it's
again,
not sorry, it's not a lack of you offering the greatest work culture, right? Like, that's the thing. So I always wonder, where are these people hiding? Where did they go? Did they start working for themselves? I know for me, I like to work for myself because I'm my only responsibility, right?
yeah,
And I think that's where okay, so you don't have the answer. That's okay. Well, that will be another conversation. We're gonna wrap up here with one last question. two. The first question is, what is the number one piece of life advice, work, career, all things wrapped up in one that's kind of your mantra, your motto, gets you out of bed, keeps you energized, keeps your team energized? And then your favorite spot if someone's going to Dublin or maybe Ireland, where do they need to, like, the must place they need to go visit?
Okay, so the first one, my mantra that I kind of go with, particularly the last 10 years, is go with your natural flow. I think you can end up in different things in lives where your job or different things you're doing become very much a chore, and because it's not a natural energy, you don't have the natural energy towards it. I'd say always go towards your natural energy, go with your natural curiosities and interests, because in doing that, you're gonna succeed in those areas far more than anybody else because it doesn't feel like work to you.
No, no,
It's
they're
it's
like
very
this.
exciting.
This is awesome.
Exactly, exactly. And so, that's my advice to people. I know that's like it's not always possible. I'm quite privileged in terms of what I'm able to do these days, but as much as you can, I think that's
But you
uh,
can get elements of that every day. Like
absolutely,
a
absolutely,
conversation with someone on the street, you know?
totally,
Yes, it's
totally,
totally
totally.
possible. I love that. Okay, we're hitting up Ireland, where if we're flying to Ireland, well, for Canadians, where are we going?
So I think if you're flying into Dublin, which I feel is where most people end up when they go to Ireland, I would say get out of the city. I think what's really nice about Dublin is like you don't have to go too far to be in lovely nature. And so if you're a big outdoors fan, I'd recommend going to Wicklow. The Wicklow Mountains there are gorgeous. There's a place called Glendalough, which I always bring my US colleagues to when they're over because it's not too far away from the city. Gorgeous scenery, lovely fresh air. And yeah, I'd recommend that. I think if
Okay,
you're going anywhere in Ireland, I think the West Coast is the way to go. Kerry in particular is absolutely gorgeous. Lovely
golfing.
coastline, lovely beaches, again, lovely scenery. And so much days, or time indoors these days. I love to get out as much as I can,
I love
particularly if
it.
the weather's
See, you
nice.
are sitting under a tree sometimes.
Sometimes, but I can't say I'm there with a pen and paper though.
That's okay.
I'm probably
Maybe
there
that
with a
just
sandwich or something.
that is just as good. Oh, this is awesome. I am very, very honored to have you on the Small Town Entrepreneur Podcast. Graham, you are a delight. Thank you so much for the work you do for our world. And for those of you that are listening, where do we want to push them to connect.com?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd say go check out connect.com. We're at our early beginnings on this network. We've a couple of communities there that we've created. There's plenty more to come, in particular ones for small company builders. And so, yeah, get over to connect.com and I'd love to hear from you all. Please reach out to me.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Cheers.
See you now. Thanks for having me.